Hi there, this is Ben Sanford with Primal Lab. I just wanted to give you a kind of an overview of what I call the Primal Journey. So, we've talked about the primal perspective, and when you apply that perspective to training and to life, it reveals a process that I call the Primal Journey. So, the Primal Journey is it's the way of going about all of our training and curriculum that creates this emerging phenomena. So emergence is, when a number of things come together, some elements come together, and from their interaction, something else arises that is unpredictably different than the parts. So what happens when we integrate these different practices, the body lab, the earth lab, the soul lab, is we get this fusion of self, or fusion of experience. And I'm using that word because of my influence with Tom Brown Jr. He speaks of what he calls fusion. It's this process, or this phenomena of when you are integrated as a person, you're embodying your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit, and you're doing that in a way that you are then able to merge with or harmonize with, not to sound too cliche, but to be able to integrate with your environment, with nature, with the world around you in a way that something else emerges, And then if we extend that to the world of mystery, or spirit, whatever you want to call it, I like mystery, but then again, it's another compounding of that phenomena. And so what emerges from that is this fusion, this state of connectedness or oneness. There's really no good words to explain this stuff, with which we approach life. And that fusion, the journey to that fusion and the journey in that fusion is really what I'm referring to. So okay, so that's kind of the deep end. That's like the philosophical cool end of this. The useful end, is where the training that you do becomes embodied in a way that you are unconsciously capable in ways that you didn't know you were before, or you weren't before. Your connection to nature becomes secondhand, and your situational awareness expands. Your self-awareness and awareness of relationships and others and the world around you just shifts in these deep and indescribable ways. I'm having a hard time describing it. And it does kind of take you into a different world, and I like to think of it as the primal world. Again, that concept being not just wild and raw, but kind of pure and true, and thinking of you as a human in your primal condition. So, and still able to bring it with you into your modern context and be functional in the world and all that. So the journey is this process through the primal arts. We take these step-by-step progressive little individual exercises and practices and things that of themselves don't seem amazing. I mean, sometimes they are. Sometimes one exercise will just change your life, but it's the accumulation of this, and it happens over time in a natural way that can't be substituted. In this modern day of really being used to being able to get what we want quickly, there's a certain speed of life that the journey honors that really can't be it can't be, you can't get around it, And part of that, I think, has to do with literally with biological processes in our own bodies and minds, and how we pattern information and how our nervous system works and whatnot. So you can certainly speed up the process to a degree with good training methodologies and good instruction and feedback and learning from the people who went before you and all of that. But there's still a constraint due to your humanness that I think if we are actually approaching this at a level of what's real, it just takes what it takes, and I just call it the speed of life. So and the willingness to do that, and the not just willingness, but like the acceptance and the embrace of that pace and that journey is what it takes. I mean, that's it. That is what sets it apart and makes it a different experience. And when you are able to do that and allow it to be something you're being, not just something you're doing, then again, it's life-changing. It's transformative. So the primal journey, to get more specific on what we cover, let me just go through this in a way that I'll try to make the most sense of it here. So, in the diagram that I use for this, you can see that we have a series of 12 classes, and it looks kind of like a basket, or it looks like a spider web, and that's because it's somewhat complex. And complex doesn't mean complicated. It means has a deep level of capacity, really. It's able to it's comprehensive, it's able to be general and specific, and it's useful in many situations. So the journey is going through this spiderweb map, what I call the primal template, going through this incrementally over time, over the course of a year actually, is how it's set up. And that is the journey, the primal journey I'm talking about. Well, let me say that's our example of the primal journey. Let me just back up a sec. So really the primal journey is referring to something that's even more fundamental than what I'm trying to teach in our classes. It is something that happens to you as a result of doing our classes, and that is becoming one who journeys, becoming one who knows how to wander with purpose, who knows how to journey, who knows how to surrender, and do all of these skills that make a process of learning, growing, transforming, consistent, reliable, or almost predictable in a way, not entirely, just and enjoyable. It makes it, I think what it does is it allows you to train in a wise way, if that makes sense. I say that humbly, but so this process of journeying, that is the primal journey. It happens on every level. It happens as a micro level when we're learning. We go into the unknown. We make new distinctions, and we integrate those into our lives, and we're transformed, and we step onto a higher step when we do that. And so anyway, that's the primal journey. But journeying through using those skills through the primal template is what we do here in our curriculum. So we have a set of classes that are organized around what it's traditionally called the Wheel of Life, or the Medicine Wheel. It's a model of that honors principles and process in life, and I'll explain much more about that as we go. But so in the springtime, we start with what we call the hard skills, or not difficult, just concrete. They're the skills that are the most obvious, and they are also what I refer to as the science. So if you're approaching a skill, it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, I'll use martial arts as an example. Looking at martial arts, there's a science to it. In Japanese, it's essentially called jitsu. It's the mechanics, right? And that level of training is usually, it's kind of the most obvious. It's the thing you run into, the how-to, the what to do, and all of that. And it's where you can Google stuff and get tricks and hacks and techniques, and those techniques will give you access to these skill sets. And at some point, with practice, you get to the point where you can do these, where the skills become second nature, and not only that, they become kind of a craft or an art, right? And that's the second layer of our training, which is the art, I call it the training series, but it's about how you train. It's about your methodology and turning your practice into an art. And then finally, we have the tribe series, which is like the philosophy and ethics, and that's the why. It's mostly about you in the world of people, but and beyond. So, so anyway, we start in the springtime with tracking, and the tracking. I'm just going to touch over these briefly, but tracking is the science of noticing and interpreting disturbances in the baseline of whatever you're looking at. So noticing what's different and understanding the story behind it. So and we cover all kinds of stuff in that, and has a lot to do with awareness. In fact, they're essentially the same thing. And then we move into the training series, in the springtime as well. The next month we go a little deeper and we look at what's called the path. And the path is it's basically a class on how to journey. It's about the noticing and creating distinctions. And so it's kind of like making tracks, in your life and in the world, and stepping onto a path of a holistic path, a journey of mastery in some area. And basically we look at that and the nature of vision as well. So then the last class in that season is called Know Thyself, which is a deeper look into the skills of tracking. In fact, it's applying the skills of tracking onto oneself, and so using tracking as a way to discover more about yourself, I suppose, or to know thyself in a greater way. So it's amazing how the tools of tracking, because they are universal, transfer very beautifully onto that. So then we move into the summertime. And in the summertime, the hard skill that we focus on, the science, is survival. And survival, basically our class starts with the assumption that you have nothing, that we're talking about pure survival, which is you and your environment, wherever you are. And we look at the deep principles of that and some of the basic tools and needs and how those relate. We learn how to we learn what's involved in making shelter, finding water, staying hydrated, making fire and tending fire, and making food and refining food, and then tools and other things. So this is really powerful and powerful class that I describe as feeling like going home. By the end of the day, no one wants to leave, and we just feel like we could just continue going on for forever now, living out here in the wild. The continuing story of survival in the training series, so a layer deeper in the following month, is called the tools. And it's kind of a play on words. I mean, most of survival is about our relationship to the earth with our superpower of making tools. We're the great tool makers of the animal kingdom, And in the tools class, we actually look at to borrow a word from John Vervaeke, the psychotechnologies. These are the mental tool sets or skill sets that allow us to move along the journey of transformation gracefully and to learn in a powerful way. And so the tools class, it's not about making things out of sticks and stones. We do that in our labs. And in the survival class, it's about the practices, the age-old practices of nature connection, of self-awareness and transformation. And so then the next layer of class in the tribe series in the summertime, so this would be the 6th class, is that right? So it's tracking, the path, know thyself, survival. So the 5th class would be, tools, and the 6th class is called Know Thyself. No, it's called Team Dynamics. We already did Know Thyself in the springtime, which feeds right into team dynamics, because to be part of a team, it really helps to know yourself. I mean, I would argue you need to really know yourself to be in a functional team, because you have a bunch of individuals, and when you have a bunch of individuals that know themselves operating as a team, it's magic. And I don't mean know yourself in a complete final way, just you know your gifts, you know your weaknesses and your basic traits, and you're able to be able to communicate and be transparent, and you're stable enough within your own ego that you are able to get out of the way for the sake of mission and process and others. So actually that's kind of what the team dynamics class is about. We're looking at the what makes and breaks a team, and we're looking at the dynamic processes, the unseen aspects of team that are often hidden and not really discussed. So, and that's our summertime, so now we've gone halfway around the wheel of life. The fall in this journey, we start with we have the healing class, which is our hard skill of that season, and the healing class is looking at self-care, self-healing, healing others, using medicines, and I'm not talking about psychoactive medicines necessarily. I'm talking about some plants, but and there's other ways of thinking of medicine, healing with stories, healing with listening, and healing with place. It's really powerful. So, and then we also look at what it means to be a steward or a caretaker of the earth and a protector of the earth, and be a healer in that way, and directly work with healing the planet, which in turn heals us, because we're just an extension of the planet. So really powerful work. So that's our healing class. And then supporting that in the training series, we have a class called The Way. So it's the path, the tool, the way. And the Way class is about the work of transformation. It's about the transformational process, and maybe it sounds like a broken record at this point, but this is a distinction. There is a actual there's an actual process in the bigger journey. There's an actual process of this transformation where you go through these stages, and it's similar to what people do in a rites of passage or a vision quest. And that's what I mean. It's a process within a process. So it's a small transformative cycle. And it happens every time you learn something, or every time you make a breakthrough or a change in your life. So, but there's work involved in that. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere magically. Sometimes your circumstances can help you have that, but it's part of the idea is why wait? Why not be the co-creator of your own life? So the way class is followed by a class called Creating Community, which again is focusing on the people, and it's a kind of a conceptually bigger class than the team dynamics, and broader in scope and application. And teams are much about doing and getting stuff done, actionable, and creating community is more, in this sense, we're more about living together, being together over time. This is, and not together, not like living together, commune, but coexisting, and part of the root word of commune from community is to have together, or to give together, which I think is a beautiful thing. So we look at the deep principles of that, and then we go into the winter time. In wintertime, we focus on a class called Combat. And in combat, we don't just fight for our lives. In combat class, we look at the nature of conflict. We do look at it at the edge of physical conflict, because that is one of the skill sets we study in skills of protection and martial arts and stuff. But it opens that up to expand the skill set to far beyond punching and kicking and all of that, to include awareness, body language, communication, tactics, and it just gets very big, and it really becomes about protecting life and becoming a protector, not just being good at fighting. Right? So a fun class, very fun, pretty active, and usually, and it's in the wintertime, so it's usually pretty special. Then we have the Zone, which is the continuing story of the training series, the How to Journey, which is the path, the tools, the way, the zone. The Zone is about the optimal or peak performance, peak experience, these states that we are. I was just talking to someone about this today, how we are actually all deeply addicted to flow state, and how the Zone is a range or a condition within which flow happens a lot. And we talk about how to create that and experience flow more in your life. So finally, the Mentoring Leadership class, which is the last one in the journey, the Primal Journey series, or the Primal Template. And the Mentoring Leadership class is about the nature of influence. And it's kind of meant to be at the end, kind of cumulative of this whole story of how do you preserve and pass on, what you've learned in your life. How do we make sure that knowledge and wisdom and skills are passed on? And how do we activate and empower leaders and do that in a way that is truly empowering? And I mean through mentoring. And we even talk about how to do that invisibly, as a servant, in a way that people won't even detect. Not to hide it from them, but to really allow people to embrace their power and not have to rely on others to live their vision. So anyway, so that's kind of a long story of our the Primal Journey, and there's so much more to it, really. I do a year-long, it's actually more than that, it's a multi-year course called The Journey. It's a program. It's really a year-long curriculum, but there's several phases to it. Much like I actually have that Primal Labs as well. You can do the beginning version, the intermediate version, the advanced version. So yeah, there's just a lot to pack in there. And what I'd encourage you to think about to apply to the Primal Labs is that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And that's one of the lessons of Journey, is it's available at every scale. So it's available at every class, every session we do. It's available for the whole season, and it's available, journeying is available as a whole year and as a whole life. So the skills that you learn in journeying will be brought out through the Primal Labs, but if you want to learn more about that, you will probably want to check out the Journey program, and I do have an online version of that, or get some coaching on the side, which will help connect you deeper to the journey I'm talking about, which really, in a powerful way, weaves us all together in a fusion that is hard to describe and very beautiful and life-changing. So hope that gives you a little insight into what the journey is and how we treat that. So thank you for your time, and thanks for watching, and stay well, keep going.